CEDIA Smart Home Awards Americas to celebrate the winners at Expo 2024.
Well, I believe it has sold out as of right now. I'm going to see I can get you in anyway, whether you have a ticket or not. So I'll leave it at that.
I'll tell you what, I'll be the door guy.
As I said, Mitchell and a few hundred of his closest friends are going to show up.
You know what? Just come and we'll get you in.
Are you on the list? No, but I believe my friends are. Perhaps you know them. Franklin, Grant, and Jackson.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk CEDIA Awards, ADI and Snap at the show, and all about 8K. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 446, The 7 Percenters. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matthew Scott, for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my longtime friends. First, we have the one and only Mitchell Klein. He's the VP of Business Strategy over at CEDIA. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing great, and it's really great to be back home with the CEDIA team again.
Yeah, it's fantastic news. Congratulations again. The other man that you recognize right there is the one and only Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He's the executive editor of Residential Tech Today and a huge Georgia fan. So I know you're pumped because we're a week away.
I'm excited. Yeah, I passed up an opportunity to go visit my daughter in college after, she's been there for a few weeks because I can't miss the Georgia Clemson game at noon on Saturday. I'm going to be sitting, enjoying my outdoor TV, and just being alone with my experience there. I don't like to be around anybody else when I'm watching Georgia games.
We're going to start this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Tech Today. CEDIA Smart Home Awards Americas to celebrate the winners at Expo 2024. This will be at a ceremony on the 6th of September. It'll begin with a members reception held at 4 p.m. outside the Mile High Ballroom in the Convention Center there in Colorado, in Denver, obviously. Then the CE Pro All-Star Band will welcome attendees into the ballroom ahead of the ceremony beginning at 5:30. Lutron is the main sponsor, the headline sponsor of that event. So that is fantastic. If there is any registration available, go get that now because it is close to, if not sold out already. Mitch, this is a big departure from the way awards have been done in the past. Tell us a little bit about why the change and the excitement level leading into this.
Well, I think you hit it right there. We're looking to bring a little bit more excitement into the awards ceremony itself. Now, granted, if you're winning an award or even a finalist for an award, that in and of itself is exciting. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to make it interesting and exciting for those that maybe aren't involved in, awards or bring product into marketplace or what have you. So there were a couple of the band members that had mentioned a thought, and I followed through with it, which was, why don't we just have the CE Pro band play at the awards ceremony? Because Emerald supports that. Mm-hmm. Emerald had the band playing, I think it was like on the first evening at a reception on the show floor, which was a bad environment, a rough place to have it. Wasn't great sound. Other than that, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And so the thought was, well, why not put the two together? And the challenge there was, well, the CE Pro band is all about just coming there and it's open to all, whereas the awards ceremony was you had to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So I managed to convince the powers that be that we should just not bother selling tickets. Let's make it free for all. Let's make that any attendee can come to the event, can enjoy it, can grab a beer, can grab some wine, can get a little something to eat at the end of the day, check out who the award winners were, enjoy some music with their buddies. And it wouldn't cost at all. So we have that going down, and it's really been well coordinated. I am very thankful for Emerald's quick acceptance of it and for the CEDIA leadership, of which I'm one, of accepting of it, maybe playing some walk-up music and what have you. But the word of warning is the tickets went up. You still had to have a ticket because by law, we have to limit the amount of people that can come into the room. We increased the amount of tables. We can fit 350 people into there seated. And, I believe it has sold out as of right now. but I would recommend you still come down. Not everyone comes who buys a ticket, and I'm going to see I can get you in anyway, whether you have a ticket or not. So I'll leave it at that.
I'll tell you what, I'll be the door guy.
As I say, Mitchell and a few hundred of his closest friends are going to show up.
You know what? Just come and we'll get you in.
That's fantastic. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story. This comes to us from CE Pro. Snap One and ADI prepare a tandem CEDIA Expo experience in the wake of the acquisition by ADI of Snap One. Essentially, they will have one massive booth with all of their partners and obviously a large quantity of Snap One equipment, etc. Through it, Control 4 is celebrating part of their 20th anniversary. There's a bunch of new overseer enhancements that are going to be demoed. There's some new Wattbox stuff, literally a whole litany of things to check out. One of the interesting things that they're doing is they're hosting a booth crawl where they're going to essentially go around to multiple other vendor kind of partners that they have in some form of organized crawl event. Jeremy, let me start with you on this. How do you think that this is going to change the experience of the show for a major Snap One or Control 4 or ADI dealer that goes to the show? Because this is kind of the biggest, I'm going to say from maybe a square footage standpoint, this might be the biggest acquisition we've seen in, gosh, as long as I can remember, bringing it all under one umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, it could be part of my grand plan, which was, kind of a joke, but I felt like at some point CEDIA Expo is going to be like 5 giant booths right in the middle, and we're just going to kind of be looking at, everything consolidated into these companies. But I can think of how ADI has been in the past, and I go by there and it's like, that's not for me as a media person. Mm-hmm. It serves a purpose for sure for the integrators that are there attending. But it's a fairly, giant tabletop booth, with a lot of little gadgets kiosks to go through and figure. Yeah. And then you go to the Snap One booth, and it's kind of like the core of everything that's done in the industry. It's, flashier. It's a place you want to hang out. They've done a really good job as they've added all these brands and put all these brands together and making it this giant home of all the products. And I think that the combination of the two is going to be really interesting. And maybe it won't be more than just a bigger place that has also the ADI kind of components there blended together, and it'll just seem just like a big Snap One booth. I'm curious to see how it all comes together. Those two brands to me were an interesting fit, and I have not had a lot of follow-up from them since that happened, to be honest, to know how it's going, coming together. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be one of the bigger stories of the show, just to see what that's all about and what the vibe of it is. Right. And if you can keep the personality of the people that we know at Snap One. And as I kind of alluded to, that's been an ongoing evolution in and of itself without the ADI component. Mm-hmm. And yet we've still maintained this sort of personality of product managers and people that are there that you like to go talk to and learn about new things from. So I'm sure a lot of that will remain the same, and then you just add the ADI component.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mitch, when you look at this, as I said kind of off the top, I'm almost most intrigued with the booth crawl aspect of it, because to Jeremy's point, I do think the booth is going to be like a weird combo of kiosks and, in-depth listening areas, right? When you kind of juxtapose ADI's core business and some of Snap's, with Triad or something. The booth crawl side I find really intriguing from a, if it's a kind of scheduled grab somebody and follow them along as they go through and show you a more in-depth aspect of, their partnerships with all of these other vendors. Is that going to be something that's going to expose, hopefully, a lot of ADI dealers to a larger portion of the industry?
Well, I guess it depends if you're crawling on all fours or you're crawling on you're not really literally crawling, I guess. I think it's interesting, first of all, that it's actually Residio that is the parent company. For some reason, Residio's name doesn't seem to be attached to that article or what have you. But, Residio is very much a security company. And that's, they spun off from Honeywell Security several years ago. So my expectation would be that you're going to start seeing a fair amount of security. And I mean, from a physical sense, boundaries, cameras, things like that, and security systems. I would pay careful attention to it. I think there's a lot of value in it. And in terms of tying in security to Snap AV, it's logical. So what they're doing makes sense. I guess it's all going to be about, as Jeremy said, people buy from people. And if the people are still going to be there or not, and if they're not, where they're going to go. I'm not too worried about it, as Jeremy, you had said, in terms of, all these companies getting together and getting bigger and bigger. It opens up opportunities for some of the smaller companies as well. Matter of fact, it opens up opportunities for newcomers. So, definitely enjoy the crawl at ADI because you're going to discover some things you didn't know about. Yeah. But also crawl around the expo as well because you're going to see stuff there you didn't think you were going to see. And you'll see some new companies you haven't thought of before.
I'm going to have to go faster than crawling if I'm going to keep up with my every 15 minutes schedule that I've done to myself. I don't know why I did it. I can't say no to people. I just keep adding to my schedule.
Jeremy, I keep telling you, just don't make a schedule. Just walk around. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's hit our next story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems. The 8K Association is going to feature some new education and a promotional campaign at Expo. This includes two different panel discussions and the launch of a free white paper called Seeing the Bigger Picture, a closer look at tech, science, and content and business strategies behind the 8K viewing experience. Go read through the article. It covers, the majority of all things 8K, specifically talking about the fact that 8K is poised, keyword poised, to represent 6% of all TV sales by 2027. Which is a large and yet incredibly small number. Mitch, well, you laugh, but it's true. Point. Yeah, yes. It's a huge number when you think about it, but it's also an incredibly small number considering they're talking 2027, which is arguably only, that's only 2 years away. Mitch, let me start with you on this. I am a massive believer in 8K. I think it's fantastic. I have seen it multiple times. I love it. I don't have a single 8K display in my house, so that percentage is currently 0 in my house. I get the attraction of 8K. I do not yet understand the business case of promoting 8K to our industry at this point, beyond a informational side, which again is what they're doing with the white paper. I know it's coming. I know it's coming down the road. I also live in Canada where, from a network standpoint, an ISP standpoint, a telco standpoint, we have like 4K channels, let alone 8K. It's not coming anytime soon to the mass population. What does it mean for 8K to be at CEDIA and for the HTPs that are going to go to CEDIA?
Well, first of all, CEDIA is the right place for the technology to be introduced and for dealers to be educated on. And I think dealers really need to educate themselves on what it is. I think 8K is going to look amazingly good on all those curved screens and probably on all those 3D sets, probably be amazing quality. But okay, I'll stop.
I thought something had broken in you for a second, and then I realized you were kidding, which I should have understood all along, but I'm slow.
Okay. No, I mean, look, CEDIA is the right place for 8K to be. I agree with that. And I think, integrators, dealers, sales, tech, even some, the manufacturers should take a look, see what it is, and make a value judgment on your own in terms of the value. I think from a specification perspective, and if you're standing within a foot or two, maybe even 5 feet, it's an amazing picture quality improvement. Will the streaming companies be able to support that kind of additional bandwidth requirements? They claim they are. In terms of content, which comes first, the hardware or the software? We already know we need the software and the content before we're going to actually see rapid adoption of 8K. What is the premium price that will be attached to it? So there's a lot of questions, but I think the technology is pretty sound, and I would definitely investigate and understand what it's all about and what the requirements are.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jeremy, give us a quick overview of kind of your view on kind of where the 8K landscape is right now. Obviously, there are a couple of sets. I know from the commercial side of our business that 8K is a conversation from an acquisition standpoint, essentially from a filming standpoint, but that's typically where it dies. What's your take on the landscape?
Well, my first thought is I'm glad that things kind of slowed down finally, because I felt like that everything was such a, well, the next thing's already being introduced before the last thing was really, embraced. And for me, as someone in the industry like you guys, I would hesitate to buy something new because I was just waiting for that next thing to come out. Now we've finally gotten really a strong foothold with 4K. I feel like, that we could kind of take a pause there and not need to go to the next thing because we've got something really great right now. Now, as those bigger screens come along and there are, people sitting too close to those screens, like Mitch was kind of alluding to there, you're going to need the resolution across the screen, not just in the sort of sweet spot of the room. There's comparisons kind of to the IMAX experience in the white paper that are brought up, and how you can sit in this theater and be in a corner toward the front and still get a really good immersive experience, even though you're probably too damn close to the screen. That kind of thing. I do feel like the education right now is the key, and that's why we're talking about it. So there are going to be some panel discussions at CEDIA, and I think everyone that has the time to do that, that's a video centric person in the integration space, which should be everybody. Mm-hmm. If you're curious, sit down and listen to those, find out what's going on the, as you said, the acquisition or the production side of it, how far down the road we're getting to where there's going to be content available, and it is going to be a premium. I think it seems like it would be a great gaming kind of a solution, but the funny thing is, I don't expect gamers to pay that premium that you would need to pay for 8K. I don't see that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking about the teenager gamer versus like the 40, 50-year-old guy that pay whatever to have a great experience with a huge screen and the gaming thing. So maybe that would work as well. I think there are a lot of questions and a lot of opportunities to learn, and what a great place to do it. So nice to see CEDIA Expo being the venue. NAB is one of the venues for this type of thing, and this is the other one.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting. We've got for a keynote, we have Barry Sonnenberg, the director, and he's very, very into home theater, big time, supports it. And yes, he's going to be doing a keynote, so it'll be more of a lecture. And I don't know if there'll be Q&A, but he's also going to be signing autographs. He'll be in a couple of the booths. I can't recall all of them, but I know he's working with Richard Jarston in his book, the Theaterology book is coming out. So we'll have an opportunity to actually ask him about that. So I think that would be very, very interesting to talk to Barry Sonnenberg about 8K.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, gentlemen, we're going to hit up with or finish up with not so much a story, but an interesting product.
Thingy.
It's a thingy. Yeah, it's a thingy. A thingy I came across today. It's coming from everyone's favorite networking company, Ubiquiti. And we don't typically talk about them a ton on the show, even though they do play a fairly decent role on the networking side, even a little bit from the security side in our space. But I came across today, they are releasing a PowerAmp on the 29th of August, so a day after this airs. It's a low latency wireless audio streaming device, AirPlay 2, Spotify Connect, 130 watts per channel at 8 ohms, speaker terminals, subwoofer out, all the normal things. HDMI eARC with a slew of Dolby and Dolby Atmos things, and a interesting looking rotary knob on the front. I bring this all up to kind of have a quick, interesting conversation about the fact that I never expected Ubiquiti to get into the audio game. And if you go take a look at the link, take a look at the product, it is going to look eerily similar to a product from the currently somewhat maligned Sonos company, because it looks like their amp, and their knob on the front looks eerily similar to a Nest thermostat, which, hey, they're taking two great products and kind of throwing them together, which I find interesting. Mitch, let me come to you on this. Again, this is not something I expected to see from Ubiquiti, but it looks really intriguing to me. We've seen the massive increase of WIM coupled, again, kind of with a continual misstep that Sonos has made over the last, gosh, it's been like 8 months now. When this releases, if this is functional and works, this hits a much better price point than the Sonos product. $599 US, $799 Canadian, 130 amps, or sorry, 130 watts. Again, I'm not saying it's going to dominate anything, but it's a really interesting play by UI jumping into this space. And all you have to do is look at it and go, yeah, we know who they're going after.
My take is that there's always room for another player. And that means in almost any product category or any industry. We've seen this with things like door locks. Like, okay, we got enough door lock companies, and another one comes out with something. You go, wow, why didn't I think of that? Mm-hmm. It's clearly a nascent market. Yes, I mean Sonos has a product that's been relatively successful in the marketplace, but Ubiquiti coming to market, I think you're going to have to pay attention to it. They're not just throwing one new product out there. I'm sure there's a roadmap attached to it, and I'd be really interested to learn what that roadmap is. And if you follow along their product categories, essentially doing network security, doing power over Ethernet devices. They also add wireless cameras. They add other wireless devices. This is definitely something to be paying careful attention to. And I would love to get a sample to play with it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Jeremy, wrap this up for us. Is this something that you think may, to Mitch's point, is this a first shot across the bow into, more of our space, into the AV side of our space from UI?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of got this at the last minute to look over, and I'm still kind of processing what everything is going through the website. And I mentioned before we went on to record that it definitely has a very commercial feel to it. So, not so much on the Resi side, but obviously those who are savvy can make that leap easily. I would be curious about their type of support for this new line, because that's so important in the Resi channel.
I'm sure it will be 0.
Yeah, so
I love UI, but it'll be 0. It'll be a link to a forum.
Yeah, so that would be a challenge, because I feel like that's a huge thing in the CEDIA channel, that that having that dedicated channel to talk to someone, and when you need help with setup or whatever. Maybe they made this so stupid simple that you don't need that as much, but as great as our industry is, there's still a need for a lot of that, dedicated kind of hand-holding, to get you through that first job. So if that's not there, I'd be a little leery, but I'm sure the product quality is going to be great. And it's, you've read into the competitive shot across the bow more than I would naturally see here as a media person, but it could be very much what you're saying. So
we got some good deals on some old Nest thermostats too. I mean, they had to move that inventory somehow.
Gen 1, baby, just recycle it. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting to me. It hits it. I don't want to say this because I'm sure their engineering team spent a lot of time making this and working on this, but at the same time, I kind of feel like they just threw something into like Mid-Journey and said, hey, make us an amp that looks like this. Because to your point, Jeremy, in the promo stuff, all of the displays show kind of like that commercial environment of different lounges and restaurants and all this other stuff. It's an 8 or 4 ohm product. This is not 70 volt. This is not, something that we would design it's not the typical tool we would use in a commercial environment, knowing that, Sonos is playing that same game as well. But notwithstanding, I think it's still kind of looking, I think it's designed for residential or small business.
Hey, Jeremy, I would love to see you use your media credentials to get a sneak peek at the roadmap, because the one product coming out doesn't tell us enough. You need to know like what's on the horizon, right?
You got it, Mitch. I'm on it.
You're
okay.
On it. Let me know how that works for you.
yeah. Holding my breath.
As I've worked with them in the past or tried to, it can be a bit of a challenge, but it's interesting nonetheless. All right, gentlemen, we are going to wrap it there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Jeremy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about residential tech today, connect with your podcast, where can they do that?
Visit the website, restechtoday.com, and you can check out the podcast there and all the latest news, and subscribe to our newsletter. So thanks for having me. I had a good time.
Thank you for being here. Mitch, my friend, thank you for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about CEDIA, find you at the show, where can they do that?
Please find me at the show. mklein@cedia.org. I finally have an easy email.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter or X at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we support. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.